If it were not for you, the good that you all are doing, evil would have a free hand and would run rampant. And take my word for it, the good that you do will not be buried, interred. It will live on in the hearts and minds and spirits of people who are thankful, grateful, because they know without you, we would fall short in what we're trying to do right here. So thank you for coming. Thank this brother, Ryan Haygood. LDF, he is the one who brought LDF to this church some years ago. And sometimes, forgive him, he's going to act more like a preacher than he does a lawyer. And y'all forgive him, don't hold that against him. Miss Paulette Brown, I'm trying to follow the runner show. I'm trying to follow it here. There you are.
Here I am.
All I have to do is get out of your way.
Really?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right.
Thank y'all.
Thank you, Reverend Strong, and you never have to get out of the way. And thank you, Brown Chapel AME, for hosting us. I remember when I first came down, we were outside in the parking lot. Then we moved to behind the Hilton, so it's really a joy to be in Brown Chapel AME. I was going to say amen, but amen. So I am very pleased. I want to be a part of Ryan Haygood's world and to humbly serve on the Board of Trustees of the New Jersey Institute for Social Justice, and to be here on the 61st anniversary of the Selma Jubilee. I think that the title, Fighting and Building, that this incredible two panels are going to talk about today is so very important for the times in which we are living now. The fighting part, I think we really got it down. There's no question about the fight that has persisted over time through many, many generations, including some of the heroes who were the original foot soldiers who we've lost in recent months. There is one really special one who's still with us, Fred Gray, 95 years old. I had the privilege of spending a couple of hours with him yesterday. He is as sharp as anything and was still working. So I think as we continue to fight, and these great leaders who are on the panel continue to fight, and all of you continue to fight, I'd like to focus us on the building part. Because there's so many people who are not in this room who don't know about the foot soldiers or even why we're in Selma. And so I think that me included, especially me included, we have to do a better job of educating those who are not in the room and of educating our children and our children's children. We are so happy that we have had the opportunity that we've had because of the foot soldiers, that we want to make sure that we expose our next generation to better things. And so sometimes those better things have caused us and them to forget what it took to get here. And so we have to really engage in this building process, and not just building, but having structural growth, so that when we have things that are happening right now with demons, people with no souls, leading the country, we have to make sure that we have adequate structures in place that cannot be torn down. And so that's what I want to get and leave here this time when I'm in Selma. And so with that, I want to introduce you to not just a fighter, but a builder. And that is the president of the National Bar Association, Ashley Upkins. So I just want to say a word. I just want to say a word about, something that she repeatedly says that just absolutely resonates with me. Statements are okay, and she's issued 1 million statements. Statements are okay, but actions behind the statements are far more important. And she has, during her term as president of the National Bar Association, demonstrated that on a daily basis. And so I am just so proud of all that she has done to elevate the National Bar Association, elevate Black lawyers and their worth and what they do to serve our communities and to preserve democracy and to preserve diversity, equity, and inclusion. Say the whole thing. And to make sure we are empowering the next generation. And so, Ashley, Madam President, please come forward.
Now, I prepared my remarks so I stay on time, but I'll have to take a moment, if I may. Our organization has had an interesting history because the National Bar Association quite naturally was born out of rejection. And so, we fight for civil rights, but at the same time, I'm only the 16th woman in our 100-year history. And when I gave my remarks after I was sworn in, I said, I 100% appreciate those that pulled up a seat at the table because we built the table. But let's not lose the seats because we're dying in the seats, and let's raise up those that come after us. Because since we built the table, we can build a bigger table. And I want to take a pause to recognize one of those people that has no problem building a bigger table and bringing up those that come next, and her name is Paulette Brown. And let me say this. She will fuss me out after this, and I'm okay with rebuke. But this is the only woman to have been president of the National Bar Association and the American Bar Association. And the first woman of color, but not the last woman of color for the American Bar Association. And so thank you for that moment. And with that, it is with profound honor that I stand here in Selma, Alabama. And I'm quite comfortable. Usually when I go to these speaking engagements, I'm in New York, where it's Damon, and no one sounds like me. But even though their twang is a little different, at least I'm in here. And I thank you for being in this place, Brown Chapel AME, because this is sacred ground in the story of American democracy. 61 years ago, ordinary people did something extraordinary. They walked across a bridge not knowing what would be on the other side. They walked because they believed that the promise of America had to belong to all of us always, regardless of the pigmentation or the melanation of our skin. They marched for the right to vote, they marched for dignity, and they marched for justice under law. And many of those lawyers who went into the courtrooms, who filed briefs, who challenged injustice were members of the National Bar Association. I am very grateful for being able to work with Fred Gray. I am grateful for being able to work with Arnett Hubbard. I am grateful for being able to work with Ryan Haygood and Damon Hewitt and many others, and Kimberly Crenshaw, and to be able to give her flowers while she's here. And yes, I have challenged my organization to not be symbolic. We sometimes tend as Black folks to engage in pageantry, and that's okay as long as there's substance behind the pageant. There's nothing wrong with a pretty face, only an empty mind behind the pretty face. And so I had no problem issuing statements. I did not care what consequences be what they may, because I remember people that sat next to me even when they didn't know who I am. Tish James, who we shared hips. She was sitting on my hip, and you didn't even know who I was, but she was there to call us to action. That's right. And what did I tell you? I said, we're going to act, right? Because that's not something, again, the National Bar Association absolutely has, but there's been a time, part of growth is being honest. And so that legacy of the National Bar Association matters, but it matters because people like me that stand on these shoulders, we have to continue the work and not just sit in comfort. Because when we talk about our Selma moment, we are remembering our history, but we are also being reminded of our responsibility. Every generation is being tested. Every generation must decide whether it will simply inherit freedom or whether it will protect freedom and expand on those freedoms. And today, we know that that work continues. Across this country, we are seeing challenges to voting rights, the undermining of equal justice, and attacks on the very idea that the law should protect the most vulnerable among us. But Selma reminds us of something powerful. Progress has never come from comfort. It has always come from courage and has always come from community. So when we say that we are fighting and building, Ryan, that means something. We fight to protect the rights that generations before us sacrificed for, but it's now our generation's job to build. We have to build stronger laws, but as we see, we have to build stronger protection around those laws. We have to build pathways for the next generations of lawyers, advocates, civil rights leaders, because Selma is just not where history happened. Selma is where history continues to call us to act. And so with that, I am grateful to be here, and I invite you to introduce yourself, because I believe with community, we can overcome all that has been done. Thank you.
Man. Good afternoon. Oh, come on, you all. Good afternoon. I can't tell you how gratifying it is to be with you all. I think that they call this Damon Todd Hewitt standing room only. Y'all sleep. I think they call this standing room only. And that matters because you all know that Brown Chapel has been under reconstruction for the last 6 years. The last time we were in this sanctuary was just at the end of February 2020. And so it's wonderful to be with you in this warm space on this 61st anniversary of Bloody Sunday and what it led to. I want to pause before we begin by acknowledging, as a personal point of privilege, Damon Todd Hewitt. Damon and I, we were what they call baby lawyers together at the Legal Defense Fund. He came by way of a fancy fellowship called the Skadden Fellowship. Very few lawyers get the Skadden Fellowship, and I snuck in through the back door through some other fellowship. And we have long dreamt about ways to work together. He now leads the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights, and we've been doing this together for 5 years. It's a reflection of our love for each other, our partnership, but also recognition that we cannot do this work alone. Speaking of not doing this work alone, I just want to acknowledge the passing of Reverend Jesse Jackson. For more than the 20 years that Damon and I have been coming here, he was here You couldn't miss a photo of the Bloody Sunday commemoration without seeing him in it. And so today, as many of you know, his family and loved ones are gathered in Chicago for his homegoing celebration. Our colleague Mark Thompson is there now and couldn't join us. But before we move forward, I just wanted to take a moment of silence to remember Reverend Jesse Jackson, remember who he was to us, how he inspired us, and how he literally left it all in the field with a life spent marching for justice, democracy, and human dignity. And so I welcome you to Brown Chapel AME Church. The shepherd of this church, Pastor Strong, left because he's doing many, many things at the same time. I encourage you to come to service tomorrow morning. So it starts at 9 o'clock. Karen Baines Dunning, it starts at 9 o'clock-ish. And you already know it's packed right here, so I encourage you to think about how much earlier you need to get here to be here. And the reason is because, although he's not telling folks, he's retiring. After 13 years of shepherding this church, he's retiring, and he's kind of trying to retire the way that folks who do the work and love it quietly do it, which is to not tell anybody that he's retiring. So I encourage you, he doesn't know this, but he's asked me to say a few words in the service. I'm actually gonna do the tribute. He doesn't know because he's not here, and he won't watch the live stream, so it doesn't matter. But please come tomorrow. So as you know, as Ashley mentioned, the title of our program today is Our Selma Moment, Fighting and Building. And the title is inspired by a passage in the book of Nehemiah, which I have been obsessing over. Some of you all know this story well. It is Nehemiah 4:17, and there the people of Jerusalem were rebuilding their city in their own chaotic moment. Enemies surrounded them, and the future then was very uncertain. And the scripture says that those who carried materials did their work with one hand, and they held a weapon in the other. Right? They built, Pastor Timothy Atkins Jones, they built with one hand, and they fought with the other. It was a fight and a build moment at the same time. They fought the forces trying to tear the community down, and they built for the future the community then deserved. That was the assignment of the people of Nehemiah, and if we get honest with ourselves, it's the assignment of the people in this blazing hot church right now. To fight and to build, to defend what's right, and to build, bless you, what comes next, to protect the truth, and to build the future. We must fight the rising authoritarianism and the assaults on our democracy, assaults on our communities, assaults on our people, like Congresswoman LaMonica McIver from the 10th District in New Jersey. Assaults on our people, like the Congresswoman LaMonica McIver from the 10th Congressional District in New Jersey. And assaults on our institutions, like the Southern Poverty Law Center. And assaults on our institutions, like the Southern Poverty Law. It's SPLC today. It's other institutions tomorrow. And we must also build what comes next, because we know this. There will be a next, and it must be different than the status quo that led us to this moment. But I also want to acknowledge something very plainly, and that is what you all know. This world is dangerous right now. It's hostile, it's chaotic, it's upside down. It's also true that this moment that we face right now is certainly no more difficult than the one that the foot soldiers 61 years ago who met and left this church then faced. When they stepped onto that bridge not far from here to face down violent and build a movement that would transform democracy in America, in the world, and would compel a stubborn, a reluctant President Johnson to sign the very legislation that he said that would have been impossible to sign just 9 months earlier. Because there would have been no Voting Rights Act without the sustained generations-long work that preceded it, the on-the-ground organizing, the advocacy, the resistance, the meetings in hush harbors, in places of worship, on college campuses, the risks that were taken to body, to comfort and spirit, and even the sacrifice of life and the Bloody Sunday that preceded it. That march, as you all know, continues with us, that we are the literal continuation of that march. And it's my heart's desire in this space for the next few hours that we might do what the original Bloody Sunday foot soldiers did here, that they found safety first here in a dangerous world. And they also found the inspiration in this space to go on and do what they were called to do. This is the place where they gathered, where they prayed, they prepared before stepping out and literally placing themselves in harm's way so that we might reap a harvest that we didn't plant. So that we might reap a harvest that we didn't plant. I think it's actually an expression of God's kindness. The air conditioning, Pastor Timothy Atkins-Jones, it was blazing last night. And I think God has said, sometimes, to Ashley's point, comfort is the enemy of progress. And just because I want to remind you of the little bit of discomfort that it took to get you all here, the AC, if it's on, is not going to work. And y'all going to use them fans. My wife will say the fan dance, not that fan. Not that fan. Just a little bit of discomfort to remind us of what's required to do this work so that before we step back into the world and into our Selma moment, we'll be ready to do the work that we're required to do. So I'm grateful to be able to have with us three stellar people to have a conversation about fighting and building. April England Albright. April England Albright. You know you bad when you got three names. April England Albright. She's the legal director and the co-founder of Black Voters Matter. Period, full stop. Congresswoman LaMonica McIver, representing the 10th Congressional District, which, personal point of privilege, includes the mighty, mighty city of Newark, New Jerusalem. Just really quickly, if you're from New Jersey, would you just please stand? Just so you know what New Jersey looks like. Yeah, if you're from New Jersey, yeah. I want to acknowledge our newly installed Attorney General Jennifer Davenport, who joins us today with her team, Sundeep and Whitney. And finally, Professor Brian Fair, interim president and CEO of the Southern Poverty Law Center, joins us today. So I begin with this first question. April, this comes your way. I have been spending a lot of time reading Timothy Snyder's on tyranny. Right? If you haven't read it, I encourage you to read it. There are 20 very practical steps to resist authoritarianism. And in the first chapter, Timothy Snyder warns that authoritarianism grows through what he calls anticipatory obedience. Right? This is when people comply in advance and they give whatever they think power wants. But he also reminds us in this book on tyranny that resistance teaches power its limits. In other words, when people refuse to comply in advance, when they stand up and push back, Attorney General Tish James, when they stand up and push back, right? When they do that, they teach power what it can and, more importantly, what it cannot do. And that's what happened here in Selma. So April England Albright, all three names. Talk to us about what it is, what you're seeing in communities right now. And stepping back for a moment, what has this moment exposed about us?
No? Okay. So, I was blessed for us to be able to live in Selma, to live and work and organize in Selma for 10 years. And there was a small community not too far from here. It's called Oroville. And we were organizing in that community because there were utility bills that were unregulated, and it was causing people to have to live in conditions where they didn't have power. Like you could drive in a neighborhood and you would see one trailer using the power of a neighbor's trailer. And so we had went in this community because we wanted to figure out how we could begin to resist and create an environment where we could, take on the utility company that was in control in that community at the time. I'm going somewhere.
Take your time.
And so we were walking amongst the middle of the community, and then we saw a group of black folk, and because it's a predominantly black community. And I'll never forget, they were complaining because there was a white man who had made himself mayor. And they were upset about that. And they were talking about there was no election. He's just opening up the building and he running it. And nobody said he was mayor. And so we're listening and we're in shock. Like, what? We haven't heard about an election in Oroville? And then 5 minutes later, this same white man walks by, and immediately they all say, "Hey, Mayor so-and-so, how are you doing?" And so Cliff, Latasha, and I just kind of stood there just shocked, right? But here they were complaining about their conditions, and immediately when they saw him, they called him mayor. And so when we talk about what you just said, right, how we begin to acquiesce, how we begin to surrender to these types of tyrannous activities, we do. How many people started carrying their passport? In their pocket. I have one right here, right? Why did we do that? When we know what they're doing is wrong, but immediately we start carrying our passport so that we can answer and declare that we are citizens, even though that never existed. So how is Selma relevant to that moment? It's because the folk here did not declare what was holy, those things that were unholy. And so what we gotta do is we gotta start to acknowledge that. And we gotta really start unpacking that, because when you make something holy, right, it doesn't have to be just a church or a faith institution. It could be systems that you live in, that you were told governs how we should live and express ourselves as citizens in this country. And so when you declare those things that are holy, that are not holy, then what begins to happen is you create your own tenets of how you behave. And so what the folks in Selma understood was that the system that we were living under was unholy. Even though it was allegedly legal, right? It wasn't righteous. And that was their temperament. And that's what led them. And so just like, we're sitting here in Brown's Chapel, imagining the people getting prepared to go and take on a system because they didn't have a permit. They knew that when they were leaving here, they didn't have a permit. And they knew that there was going to be opposition, not just opposition, it's a soft word. They knew it was going to be terror awaiting them, right? But they did not declare that what is unholy, unholy. And so they left here with the courage and awareness, and that guided them to wanting to be able to challenge it and to fight it. And we need to be like them, not those folks in Oroville who declared leadership of the person that they said was oppressing them.
That's a bad sister right there, y'all. So you got 3 names. 3 names. People declaring holy those things that are unholy is a nice transition to our Congresswoman, LaMonica McIver. I'm saying her name as often as I can because it's important for you all to remember it. Because to too many in this room, the name Congresswoman LaMonica McIver is an unfamiliar one. And I'm going to ask her to talk a bit about her story and how she's experienced this hostility, this unholy behavior firsthand. But I just want to say a word about how I experienced this. So I live in the city of Newark. Her district includes where I live. She is my congressperson. She was the youngest woman to serve on the Newark City Council. She became the city council president. City's never seen a better city council president than LaMonica McIver. Never. And then when our congressman, Donald Payne, passed, she was urged by the voters of her district to run for Congress, where she'll be for as long as she wants to be in that seat. And that's because of the way she leads. And part of that leadership led her to do a congressional oversight visit to an ICE detention facility in Newark. It's a privately run detention facility. You know how privately run places that run detention facilities can be. And so she wanted to go to make sure that they were actually running it according to the way they had agreed to contract with whomever shamefully agreed to contract with them. And it was there that she had an interaction with federal agents, and she ends up being charged criminally for conducting what is a congressional oversight function. And at this moment is defending herself against federal criminal charges for doing her job, for fighting and building. That she's facing the backlash for doing what she was elected to do. Congresswoman LaMonica McIver from the 10th Congressional District in New Jersey. I'd love for you to talk about how you've experienced firsthand the injustice and hostility of this current moment. And for those who don't know the details I didn't share, please fill in those details.
Thank you so much, Ryan. Good afternoon. It's good to be in here with you all. And I just want to say, I see why my sister April got 3 names, because she done dropped the mic on us over here. As Ryan mentioned, I'm Congresswoman LaMonica McIver. I proudly represent New Jersey's 10th Congressional District, the first woman to represent the 10th District and first Black woman to represent the district, and the youngest in New Jersey delegation. So I'm very proud to represent. It feels like I've been in Congress for 20 years now, but it's only been 3 years in this seat. But as Ryan mentioned, I showed up to a detention center in my district back last May to conduct an oversight visit because this detention center is running unlawfully and illegally in the city. We had gotten many calls from leadership in the city, many calls from loved ones of folks inside of there that they could not see them, calls from lawyers who could not see their clients, just a bunch of violations. And so myself, along with 2 other of my colleagues in New Jersey, which we've done this before, showed up to this detention center and was met with hostility. An army full of ICE agents and DHS officials approached us, ended up arresting our mayor for a failed trespassing charge unlawfully, and literally roughed us up during this time of them encountering us, trying to stop us literally from going in to conduct oversight, which, as Ryan mentioned, is our job as Congress members. What they saw there and what they knew we were coming to do, especially for me, was a young Black woman was coming to insert power. Not my power, but the power that the people of the 10th Congressional District gave me to do. Not because it was my personal power. This is not a seat I'm appointed to. This is a seat I'm elected to do so. And I showed up there to protect the people that I represent and to make sure that this facility was running properly. Through all of that commotion of them still ending up giving us an oversight tour because they knew we were not going to back down until we had it. A couple of days later, via Twitter, I get a tweet saying that I'm being charged with 2 felonies and 1 misdemeanor, which holds up to 17 years in prison for showing up to do my job. Literally. I mean, that is what I went to do. I didn't go there to protest. I was not there to do anything other than showing up to do my job. And now, this Department of Justice, as we've seen, I sent out a warning back in May, that it might be starting with a little Black girl from the city of Newark, but it will not end there. And what we have saw, now everybody crying about everybody they going after. When I warned folks that this is not just about me, This is about the very idea of them snatching away the ability for Congress to do the job that people have elected them to do, to diminish our democracy, to be unlawful. And now we see different cases of this over and over and over again. And that is why that's why I continue to do my job, because they ain't gonna stop me from doing my job. I continue to be joyful about doing it. And I continue to show up and do it. This same detention center, I done been back there twice. Because they ain't gonna stop me or intimidate me or bully me, which is the goal of this administration, of this racist, bigot president and the administration. And we have to continue to call that out. It's like sometimes we get scared to say that, but it is what it is. He is racist, he is a bigot, and he is surrounded by a whole circus of them. And this is what they are doing. And so they scared my colleagues from doing oversight. A person say, man, I don't want to be in those shoes of Congresswoman McIver. I can't raise $1 million for a case. We don't get pro bono help. For all the lawyers in the room, y'all know it's against ethics. So we can't get free pro bono help. So you have to raise dollars while they're using your tax dollars to charge me. This is what I have been going through. And that is why I'm grateful to Ryan and many people in this room who have continued to lift up this story, because it's not over. We're in the third stretch of this fight, getting ready to go before the Third Circuit Court to have these charges dismissed, because why? I was there to do my job. I have legislative immunity to do so. And it's vindictive prosecution. That is what it is. They are mad. When you are a critic, when you hold them accountable, when you do anything other than what they want you to do, they literally get mad about that, and they use every power and every tool that they have to go against you. I tell folks, the process is truly the punishment. That's what it's about. Me working like a dog trying to get the dollars to fight this case, them thinking they're gonna stress me out. The process is the punishment. But as April said, there is no progress through comfort. So I feel no way to be able to stop doing what I'm doing. I'm gonna keep doing what I'm doing. I'm gonna keep showing up, doing the job that the people elected me to do. And we have to continue to do the same. It is not the time to become complacent. Yes, we are weary, but we cannot stop doing what we're doing. We have to leave this Selma moment. I know I done seen my Selma moment time after time again underneath this administration, but we have to continue to keep pushing, keep fighting, keep being a resistance, keep doing it safe, even when it is uncomfortable. The last thing I'll say, Ryan, and we've been having these Black Agenda meetings in New Jersey, all over New Jersey, making sure we galvanize all of our people. Get them unified, get them on one accord so we can operate together. We have to be together in this moment. Yes, you do. We have to. We've been doing all of this, and folks say, how do I get my electeds to do this? What are we doing in this time? Look, this time requires of us all, but specifically those who are in leadership, to have political courage. You have to. It's uncomfortable, but we have to. You have to have political courage, and we don't have the time to be punks about it. I say it plainly. It is what it is. We do not have the time to be punks about it, even when it's uncomfortable. So I thank you all for letting me tell my story, and I hope that you share it. But at the same time, I hope we leave out of here ready to continue to work and continue to do what we need to do to get our communities back on track.
Shut it down again.
Moment is intense. It's intense.
Our colleague Jake Gerard and our colleague Makari Vargas drafted a sign-on letter that you can access if you're an organization through the QR code. There's some palm cards in the back. I encourage you to get it. It's a letter to the U.S. Attorney's Office for the District of New Jersey urging them to drop these shameful charges. The truth is that the letter to the U.S. Attorney's Office is a letter to the U.S. Attorney's Office, but it's really designed more for us to raise our visibility about the issue and for us to advocate on behalf of the Congresswoman. I love the framing that April England Albright gave us with the three names around transforming what is unholy into holy. And the Congresswoman talks about how to resist when we're targeted individually. It's also true that the administration has targeted historic, storied organizations that, like SPLC at their founding, were designed to topple hate. So you all know the SPLC is that organization that brought down the KKK as an organization. It is in its DNA to identify and eradicate hate. And we're in a moment of rising authoritarianism and rising hate. And we're fortunate to have Professor Brian Fair, who is the interim president and CEO of SPLC here. And Brian, I wanted to invite you to weigh in after these two dynamic sisters went ahead of you. And this is all designed very strategically to your advantage. If you could talk a bit about what SPLC was founded to do around confronting hate and white supremacy, and how in this particular moment, SPLC is both fighting and building. Welcome, Brian.
Thank you so much, Ryan. And I want to thank all of you for coming out today. Thank you so much for coming out today. And Ryan, thank you for your leadership of this event and of your institute. I come to you with great humility, first of all, knowing that we are in a sacred space and knowing the sacrifices that so many made so that I can be where I am today. When we say we stand on the shoulders of giants, we have to mean that. We have to recognize the people who made sacrifices for us, who opened doors for us. So I come to you with that humility. I also come with gratitude for the extraordinary leadership that each of you shows every day by being in a space like this, by being in your communities, by leading, by caring, by lifting up others. The SPLC was born out of resistance. It was born to resist racial terror in this country, not just by the Klan, but by the white power structure that enabled the Klan to do so much damage to so many people. Today, I want to lift up not the bully in the White House, not the tyrant who is doing so much damage to our country. I want to lift up the resistant spirit that calls all of us to resist authoritarianism, to challenge the ongoing oppression at this moment in our country and globally. We are part of a global freedom movement. It is not just a movement in Selma. It is not just a movement in Montgomery or Birmingham. It is a global movement, and we are each a part of that movement. And it is only because we are divided that we are not successful. Someone said this morning, the billionaires, there aren't enough of them to defeat us. If we exercise our power collectively, we can win, but we don't always exercise our power collectively. There are divisions among us, sown by our opponents, that divide us. What I've learned recently from partners in this ecosystem is we are stronger when we function as a coalition. I represent the 370 extraordinary freedom fighters at SPLC. They show me every day, they inspire me every day by their work that we can make change. But I also say to them, we are stronger when we are in coalition with other civil rights organizations across the spectrum. So I reach out across the aisle. I reach to my partners who have other areas of focus. We have to recognize the dignity and the humanity of everyone in this space and everyone in this country, and the dignity of all human beings. We don't do that as well as we should. When we look across the room, we have to see people that we love, that we respect, whose dignity we recognize. That is the only way we can defeat the kind of authoritarianism authoritarianism that is not just sweeping this country, it is sweeping the world. Donald Trump is a tyrant and a bully, but he's not the only one. And we have to organize ourselves, and the power, the collective power that we have. Many of you know that 90 million people did not vote in the 2024 election who were eligible. We've got to talk to them. We've got to know who they are. We've got to love them. We've got to help them have the identification they need, have the documents of citizenship that they need, have a way to get to the polls, have a way to know where their polling place is, have a way to know whether they've been purged from the voting rolls. You know, we learned of a time when the grandfather clause was the instrument. At-large voting was the instrument. There were other instruments and devices used to suppress the vote. Today, there are different devices. They're reducing early voting and absentee voting, right? They're still purging voting rolls. They're making it harder to vote when technology should actually make it easier to vote. And you know why they're doing it? Because voting is power. And if we vote collectively, if we vote across coalition, they cannot defeat us. So it is an honor for me to work with SPLC. It is an honor for me to be in partnership with many of the national organizations and local organizations in Alabama and elsewhere. SPLC has been blessed with extraordinary support and resources. And our board chair, Karen Baines Dunning, is here today with her husband, Dr. Art Dunning. We at SPLC are trying to leverage our resources to support our allies across this ecosystem. And so I am proud to be here with you. I'm honored to be here with you. And I will never bow down to the lie that America is great again. I will never be silent to tyranny. I'm going to stand up. I'm not going to be afraid. I'm going to lift up Letitia James. I'm going to lift up Ralph Ellison, or Attorney General Ellison. I'm going to lift up Juan Perano. I'm going to lift up Virginia Case. I'm going to lift up Damon Hewitt. I'm going to stand with them and with you until we see the change that we seek. Thank you.
Go ahead, Brian. It's excellent. Thank you, Brian. I just have one final question before we bring Damon up to transition to the second part of the program. And I close, I do want to just urge you all, if you haven't read it, to get on Tyranny. It's a quick read. It's a very practical way to understand how this moment is impacting us. He closes in chapter 20 with this title, of this chapter entitled, "Be courageous as you can. If none of us is prepared to die for freedom, then all of us will live under tyranny. If none of us is prepared to die for freedom, then all of us will live under tyranny." And so I want to start with you, April, on this last question. In this moment, what does courage look like? What does it mean to fight and build for what comes next? And what is the one thing that you urge us to do as we leave this church?
You know, it's real easy for us to talk about courage and that it takes, right? Mm-hmm. And the discomfort, like we're gonna need courage in this moment, and that's true.
Oh, April. So I'm sorry, folks in the back can't see you well. So I'm gonna ask you to come up here, and then as long as you know the question, the Congressman, you go next, and then you come here.
So, woo, this is a moment. Standing right here, I'm gonna just tell you, it's a moment, brother. It's a moment. So, I'm gonna be real quick because I'm feeling something. So, this place here is holy. Just like I said, we must call those things that are not holy, unholy. We got to call those things that are holy, holy. So this is holy. Not just because of this podium, because amazing things have transformed this country from this podium, but because of you. And every person who comes in this institution, and their legacy and their DNA is all in the walls of this. So people don't come to Selma, they're called to Selma. So you're called to Selma, right? And so as we leave this place this weekend, and we're being baptized, because we are, right? We have to remember that we are what I call neck deep people. What do I mean by neck deep? What I mean by neck deep is, there are those who say when they talk about the story of Brother Moses and when he goes and he's confronted with having to go through the Red Sea, there are many traditions in Judaism that says that there was some that he had to go neck deep. Not him necessarily, right? But that there was another Jewish person that was there that actually took the invitation and went neck deep, and then Moses was told to raise his staff and part those waters. And so saying that he had to go neck deep before it would even open was that he had to go in, right? He had to believe that my answer, my prayer to be liberated, to be free, even though I'm standing in front of a raging ocean, is still here. So there is a pathway, a divine pathway that is designed by God. And I dare say that Brother Moses would have never taken a pathway before the Red Sea. He would have taken an easier pathway. But that was not the divine pathway design. Because not only did it deliver, right, the Hebrew Israelites, but it also took down their enemy. So it's a story about their liberation, but it's also a story about the destruction of their enemy. But I don't have to just stay with Moses. I can talk about Harriet, who constantly had to go neck deep, right? She had to go neck deep and wade in the water, right, in order to bring her people to freedom. She didn't know she couldn't swim, they said. But yet she had to travel and go in the water in order to send her people to freedom. But she was willing to go neck deep, are we? So the question that we have to answer in Selma is, are we neck deep people? Right? Are we neck deep people? We are neck deep people. And when we are willing to wade in the water, when we're willing to wade in the water, right, we will get to freedom. Nothing can stop us. So that is what Selma is requiring of us in this moment, y'all. It's no pageantry here. Yes, you can go to the bridge. Yes, you can stand there and take pictures. But you are being baptized for a reason. You are called to go back home and go neck deep in your community. And when we all go neck deep, we will be liberated. This is
Are we neck deep people? Yeah. I don't know, Ryan. April should have closed out. Are we neck deep people? That is a word I am taking back with me to New Jersey. We got our marching orders. That's why she got 3 names, y'all. Y'all better remember the 3 names. I suggest you write it down. The one thing I'll end with, because I don't really think we need much after that. The one thing I think about from Ryan's question is the one thing that Martin Luther King urged. It is a tragic thing to sleep through a revolution. He talked about this in his 1968 sermon. And the one thing I keep reminding people anytime I leave an event after I get done talking is the importance of us staying awake in this moment. Not in just this moment, but every moment. We cannot be asleep. What Sister April just talked about, are we neck deep people? Are we staying awake? Are we staying informed? Are we staying awake? And that is what we have to do in this moment. You can be neck deep people and do all of this and go fight here and be with this organization, but are you staying awake through this revolution? Because this is our time, this is just a new day revolution for us. That is what it is. Every generation is being tested. Every generation has to step up and decide, is freedom worth dying for? Is it? And for me, I can talk for me and my family, yes, it is. It's important for my 9-year-old daughter. It's important for your children. It's important for your grandchildren. And I know I'm going to continue to have the courage that I need, no matter anything. Because first of all, that's what black women do. Let me just point that out. Sorry for the brothers in here. But that's what black women do. We are always in the gaps of it all. And so I'm going to continue to stand in the gap for me, for you, for your family, and everybody else. God bless each and every one of you, and Godspeed.
Thank you. Thank you both so much. So I am a swimmer. I am a swimmer, and I promise that I will be neck deep with you. And Congresswoman McIver, we know that you're taking a personal sacrifice, having been a personal target of this administration. And I just want to remind everyone here, it will not stop with Congresswoman McIver. They will come for others. And we have to stand with her and against this oppressive regime. I'm often reminded of Fannie Lou Hamer, who demonstrated a courage, a rare kind of courage. And one of the things that I remember her saying is that nobody's free until everybody's free. And for me, that means my freedom is linked to yours, whoever you are, and that yours is linked to mine. So I'm going to stand with my colleagues on this dais and with each of you and make sure that I respect your freedom as much as I respect my own. Thank you so much.
Yeah, please join me in thanking Ashley and Paulette Brown, Brian Fair, the Congresswoman, and a sister with 3 names. Let's go 5. April, neck deep, England Albright. Thank you, family. Damon Todd Hewitt, the floor is yours.
Now, how are we supposed to come up here when they still swinging from the rim? But I tell you, that was a word, wasn't it? There's some places you go where you try to figure out what's happening, what's the vibe. You got to ask people what's happening. As we say in New Orleans, where you at? You don't have to ask in Selma, because you feel it in your bones. You feel it in your bones. So even though my man Ryan Paul Haygood, who also has 3 names, you know who Paul was, we'll talk about that later. Even though he's still swinging from the rim with the rest of our first panel, we got someone who could dunk it on anybody. Shaquille O'Neal, anybody. That is Alabama's own Congressman Shamari Figures. Now, you know who he is, and you know he's a native son, but you also need to make sure you remember the story of not just how he came to be through his father's legacy, through his family and their work over generations, but also the fight that it took in the courts of law, in the courts of policy, for our friends at LDF who litigated the case, for people who marched in the streets, for people who fought for there to be a second majority black district in Alabama to fairly represent these people. And now he well represents these people Congressman Shamari Figures.
Good afternoon. Welcome to Brown Chapel. Welcome to where it all began, and welcome to the reason he introduced me as Congressman Shamari Figures. This it's always humbling to be in Selma because we know the history, we know what happened here, but it gave rise to the pathways to the litigation that we brought. And before I go any further, I have to give my deepest thanks, appreciation, love, hugs, kisses, fist bumps, everything to the Lawyers Committee, to NAACP, to LDF, to all of the fighters in the courtrooms who created the possibility for me to stand here today. So please give it up for them. Look, people ask me why I went into this route, and a lot of you know my family. Brian Fair certainly knows my family. It started for me before I was born. It started with my father, Michael Figures. My father came out of Stillman College in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. He came out of Stillman College in 1969. At a year the University of Alabama was integrating its law school. The law school was voluntarily integrating after what we all know happened at the undergrad. And so they went to HBCUs to find the students that not only could come to the University of Alabama, but those who they thought would succeed. And my father was one of the 7 that they chose along. I saw one of the other ones here a second ago. I don't know where Judge John England went. But they went to the University of Alabama in 1969. Came out in 1972. Was the first black men educated to be attorneys in the state of Alabama. And my father went back home. My father went back home because he knew there were opportunities that were still needed, still lacking for people who looked like him. And some of the early work that he did was in the voting rights space. See, back then, a lot of these cities in the state of Alabama used to have a city commissioner form of government. They didn't have city councils. Some of them didn't even have mayors. So you had cities like the city of Mobile that was almost 50% black at the time, had never in its history had a black elected local official. So they took it to court. They did the same thing that Damon and Shaylin are doing today. And because of that, today we have a city council and mayoral form of government in the city of Mobile. But it didn't stop there with my father. A lot of you guys know the story of Michael Donald in 1981, the last man that the Ku Klux Klan lynched in America. He was picked up off a street in Mobile, Alabama, because they didn't like the outcome of a recent trial that was held in Mobile. And they beat him and they lynched him. And they actually hung him directly across the street from the head of the then Klan. This is at a time where the Klan was headquartered in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, United Klans of America. And my father, being a young attorney at the time, said, we can't deal with that. And so they brought a lawsuit with the Southern Poverty Law Center. They filed a lawsuit. That lawsuit resulted in the Klan being bankrupted, shut down. It was the first time that the Klan had been held civilly liable for harming a black person in America. But it didn't stop there with my father. My father went on to become the highest ranking black elected official in the state of Alabama's history, still to this day, that we've seen. And he died suddenly in 1996. But what he did before that set the groundwork for not just the interest that I have, but for the passion that I have, for the dedication that I have. And it ain't just about daddy, because most of y'all know my mama too. All right? But last night, Attorney General Letitia James got to hear me talk a little bit about mama. Most of you guys know my mother as a senator. But I tell her at her heart, her passion, what she really loves to do is to cook. Mama's a cooker, she's a baker. And so when we look back at Selma 61 years ago, Selma had the right ingredients at the right time. Selma had the right amount of injustice that was being enforced by the right amount of evil. But it got whipped up against the right amount of courageous people that were fueled by the right amount of faith from a place like Brown Chapel. But you know, when you're baking cakes, you need more than just the butter, the sugar, the flour, and the eggs. But you had those other perfect ingredients here in Selma. You had a little leadership sprinkled in from a guy named Martin from Atlanta. You had a little bit of organizing mixed in from a boy from Troy named John Lewis. You had a little bit of strategy mixed in with a boy from South Georgia named Bernard Lafayette. You had a little bit of passion mixed in from a child activist named Miss Bland. We had a little bit of strength of another woman from Selma by the name of Amelia Boynton Robinson. You had the hope of a boy from Greenville, South Carolina named Jesse Jackson. You had more leadership from a Hosea Williams and a Ralph Abernathy. You mixed all these ingredients up and they put it into an oven that had been fueled by hate for centuries. And out came the prettiest, best tasting, best looking cake America had ever seen. It was a cake layered in freedom, a cake layered in equality, and a cake layered in justice. But this cake, Attorney General James, we couldn't eat this cake. We had to put it up for the world to see. It's like one of those fake cakes. You see it in front of the bake shop. But the problem is that since we put that cake up, since that cake came out of the oven, we've had people walking up with knives to cut out their own slice. We've seen state governments cut out a slice. We've seen governors cut out a slice. We've seen courts cut out a slice. We've seen Congress try to cut out a slice. We just had to vote on a bill last week that would have outlawed using your driver's license to vote in this country. And they had the nerve to call it the Save America Act. Well, it's up to us. And Damon Hewitt is leading the fight with others, and Brian Fair, to tell them that they can't have our cake. They can't have it. At the end of the day, there's a little bit of good news. Because at the same time that cake was going in the oven here in Selma, there was a woman here named Nancy Sewell who gave birth to a baby girl named Terry. And a few years later, there was a woman down in Mobile named Vivian who gave birth to a boy named Shamari. And Nancy and Vivian, they didn't know each other, but they taught us how to cook too. They taught us how to bake too. They taught us how to make sure that we stand up for what happened in Selma 61 years ago. Because we know that if we don't do it, we'll be going back again. I'll close with this story. I heard a story told where a man was walking through his family's history and future, and he said that his grandfather used to walk to work every day. He said that by the time his father was old enough, he could afford a bust-down used pickup truck. He was able to buy a new pickup truck. His son's in a Cadillac, and his grandson is in a Mercedes, but his great-grandson, he would be walking again. And he said that's because tough times create tough people. And tough people create easy times. And the easy times create weak people. And weak people create tough times. Let that sink in for a minute. It's a cycle. Some think we are the weak people that are going to allow tough times to be recreated. But we won't do that. I refuse to have my little boy who's running around here somewhere to be part of that generation that is forced to walk again. I refuse to sit by and be in a position in Congress and not do every single thing that I can do to stand up for the legacy that is Selma, Alabama, the legacy that is the civil rights movement, and the legacy that each and every one of you are fighting forward for every single day. Thank you. God bless you. Thank you for being here.
Congressman Shamari Figures. Now we transition to our second session, our second discussion, our second set of word with our nation's leading attorneys general, who are the tip of the spear in this fight, right alongside civil rights organizations. Can we have our AGs come up, please, and I'll introduce you. AG Letitia James from New York. Attorney General Nick Brown from Washington. And that other fighter, Attorney General Keith Ellison of Minnesota. So you know who they are, so I'll dispense with the full introductions. Please have a seat as I offer a few words to frame. So we feel the energy in this space. We feel the legacy. We also feel the mandate. You know, at the Lawyers Committee, we talk about the things that we fight for affirmatively. We talk about fighting back against all the oppression, but also fighting forward. What we're fighting forward toward is a future, but not a wish, an aspiration, or something that's icing on that proverbial cake. We're fighting for the cake itself. We're fighting not just for what we hope we can get, or what would be nice to have. We're fighting for the future we deserve. And the people who are helping us preserve that future that we deserve are these attorneys general. Now, in many ways, we know we're at a time that's a big inflection point in this nation's history. We're at a time when fundamental rights are under attack. We're at a time when all the civil rights law and infrastructure of the last 6+ decades that people marched for, fought for, bled for, died for, that law and infrastructure is being both weakened every day, but also being weaponized and turned against us. We're being told that the things we've been doing to advance justice are somehow backwards and wrong. Companies and schools are being told all the things they did to promote inclusion are now illegal and unlawful under some dystopian vision of what this country is and what it should be. So we are here in Selma, and our presence across the country together is to bring back what our ancestors had, what they forced, a moral clarity. A clarity about what is right, what is wrong, what is just, and what is unjust. And so we know that our goal has to be not just to talk about the past or the now, but also that future that we deserve. So in a period when federal civil rights are in retrenchment, we have our people at the state level, our state AGs, who are defenders. They understand that we must use the law not just as a shield to protect, but also as a tool to build. In so many ways, they are operating in the same space that the foot soldiers in Selma operated in the space between what the law currently is or was at that time and what justice requires it to be. That's the space in which they operate. So we want to get into the conversation with these attorneys general. I'm going to ask you, your comfort level, we can have you come on up if you like. I think that would be certainly the preference. And so I'll offer a few prompts, but I want you to speak what's on your heart, right? Because I know we've all been moved by what we heard in this first panel. So just a few words here about some of what these folks have done. Attorney General Tish James has been such a strong partner to us and to all of us in so many things. In particular, she fights for accountability when others capitulate. She has fought for, in litigation in which we both participated alongside us, to defend our voters, black voters and other voters, from suffering intimidation through in-person means and through online means and even through robocalls that told our people, don't vote by mail, otherwise the man will use the information to get you. She's also fought in the space of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I'm proud to say at the Lawyers Committee, we are part of leading that charge. We have filed 3 cases challenging Trump's anti-diversity, equity, and inclusion executive orders, and I can rest assured we are dragging them for filth in the courts. But Tish James and her office have been part of all of this. So please come on up and offer us a word about what you're up to and why you are part of the tip of the spear of this fight.
Thank you, Damon. Thank you. We're in a historic space. And so I want to take a moment to reflect on all of the individuals whose shoulders I stand on, who were once in this sacred space. All of those who fought and died for me to be in this position and for all of you to be at the tip of the spear and to be defenders of democracy and to fight for our freedom, and for those who have historically been left out of the sunshine of opportunity, those who are living with poverty each and every day. I can feel the ancestors in this room. They run through my vein. They're part of my DNA. It's the reason why I stand tall. And it's the reason why I will never bow, I will never break, I will never capitulate, I will never give in or give up. You see, April talked about the water, but I'm talking about walking through the fire. And if you walk through the fire, you'll never be tinged, because you have to wade through the water. And so it's important that individuals understand the moment that we are in the systematic destruction of our democratic norms and our systems, and how the Democratic attorneys general, from Kwame Raoul, whose plane, unfortunately, he couldn't catch the plane, or it got stuck or something, but he's on his way from Illinois. And I'm here also with my sister, Jennifer Davenport from New Jersey. Jennifer, please stand. You should be joining us. Come on, Jennifer. Come on up. Come on up. But the point is that New York, we have filed over 55 cases thus far against this administration. And collectively, we have won over 80% of our cases. From birthright citizenship, which was born out of the ashes of slavery, to our most recent case that we filed just 2 days ago, challenging this administration on tariffs. We were successful on the first tariffs case, and we will be successful on the second tariffs case. And the reason why that is because this president, unfortunately, continues to put forth executive orders which are illegal, unconstitutional, which do not have the full faith of the law, agency orders which are unlawful, and social posts and oftentimes he exceeds his authority, and he trespasses on our rights, and he doesn't recognize the 10th Amendment, and that is states' rights. And so it's important that we stand up and use the law both as a sword and as a shield, and that we check them each and every time. And so obviously you want to hear from all of my colleagues, but my point is this. I'm just a girl from Brooklyn with a loud mouth. And I don't fear any man. Because my faith comes from the halls of this great church and those outside of the walls of this great church, and for all of those who died and bled for my right to be here. So I will not be silent. I will use the law both as a sword and a shield, and defend the rights of all Americans, but most in particular, New York.
Come on, come on. My word.
But more specifically,
Brooklyn. Ryan Haygood, when I moved to New York to work in civil rights right after 9/11, where'd I move to? Brooklyn. All right. So quick note, we have so many amazing people in this room, people who have fought for decades, even before I was even alive. And there's also people who are fighting this contemporary fight. I won't be able to call out everyone, but I want to recognize some of our allies. The president of Common Cause, Virginia K. Solomon. The president of LULAC, Juan Perano. The president of the League of Women Voters, Selena Stewart. Where's Selena? I saw Selena somewhere. All right. And I know the mothership where I started working at LDF, but I got my start with the NAACP. I know you're always in the house. Back before I could even vote. So speaking of so we do this work in community and coalition. Our fidelity is not just to one organization, it's to movement and to the people and to our forward advancement. And there's a place, there's coalition and collaboration all over the country, but there's a state where you can't say there's a black majority in XYZ city, so that's not the politics. The politics is how do people come together? There are a number of places like that, but there's one particular state, that is a state in the Pacific Northwest, the state of Washington, where our friend Nick Brown is the Attorney General. So Nick, I want you to come and give us a word about how you build partnership and then the issues that you're taking on with your leverage as tip of the spear in Washington. Please. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Like many people who have come to this podium, it is necessary to pause for a moment. I did not imagine being a young kid from the Pacific Northwest that I would one day stand at this chapel. My father, who is from Columbia, South Carolina, who marched in the civil rights movement and was jailed, could not imagine his son standing here. When I was a young man matriculating through Morehouse College, that's right, I did not imagine that I would stand in these hallowed grounds, continuing the fight for justice that our forefathers and foremothers fought for. But I'm so proud and honored to be here with all of you today. I'm proud to be with my colleague attorneys general from across the country, and I am proud to be from the state of Washington. It was important in part for me to come here just to let y'all know there are black people that live in the city of Seattle. Now, you may have seen a lot of black people from the city of Seattle win the Super Bowl this year, but there are other black people, and I am the first black elected statewide official in Washington state history. And as much as I love working with my colleague, Tish James, I never loved following her to the podium and to the microphone. But as I told her last year when we were together, I am not from Brooklyn, but my oldest child is named after Brooklyn. When I spent time there, I said, this city has so much fight and so much power and so much energy, I gotta name my child that. But as the Attorney General, as the chief legal officer from my state, we are the tip of the spear and the shield on so many issues. I've been the Attorney General for just over a year in my state. We've brought 53 cases against this administration. And we are fighting from so many things that keep people safe and healthy and protected, leading on birthright citizenship, leading on healthcare, leading on environmental protections. In my state alone, we have protected over $15 billion of illegal cuts by this administration. And all of us up here can talk about the billions and billions of dollars that would have been lost for the people in our state, but for our fight. In all respect to my colleagues in other positions, attorney generals are leading this cause and leading this fight. Because when we see the administration do something illegal, we go to court. Donald Trump issued the executive order on his first day in office, trying to rewrite the Constitution in his image. We were in court the next day, stopping that from happening. And I want to highlight one particular action in particular because it demonstrates the hypocrisy. We've talked a lot about the dishonesty and the lack of morality from this administration, but the hypocrisy of this administration was laid bare to me when they tried to cut something called the Victims of Crime Act funding. This was a law that was passed in the 1980s and signed into law by that great woke liberal champion, Ronald Reagan. A law that provides exactly what it sounds like it provides. Funding for victims of crime. Fundings for women who are the victims of domestic violence. Funding for shelters. Medical bills for people who have suffered. And they have the audacity to try to cut that money from so many of our states because our law protects everyone, regardless of who they are, regardless of where they come from. Our law protects people who were born in the United States and those who are undocumented. Our law protects people regardless of their gender identity. And those are things that made us targets. And so they tried to cut from my state $21 million of funding. This is an administration that proclaims to be trying to keep people safe and be tough on crime, but here they are cutting billions of dollars across the country for public safety and healthcare and education. And that is why the work that we do in coalition is so important. But our ability to advocate on behalf of our respective states relies on our partnership with the community, relies on our partnership with individuals and nonprofits, because the work that we do is telling your story, telling the story of impacted people in our state, telling the story of undocumented people who are living in fear across the country, telling the story of mothers who are losing healthcare benefits, telling the story of the children who do not have access to the truth in their education system. And that's why we bring cases to defend the Department of Education, defend against the Department of Education cuts. And despite living in this moment of chaos and fear, I could not imagine being in any other position. I am having so much fun being the Attorney General. I live with so much joy being the Attorney General. I live with so much hope being the Attorney General of the great state of Washington. But we need you all to keep telling your stories to us so we can fight for you in these United States courts. Thank you very much.
Brilliant, man. Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. So we experience joy amidst the struggle. That's part of what keeps us together. It's how some of us manage our fear and our doubts. And that has had to happen in spades in the state of Minnesota. Go ahead and give it to him. That is where Attorney General Keith Ellison, my friend Keith Ellison, All of these folks say accessible, but man, Keith, man, you are accessible to the people. Yes, he is. And we didn't even, see, here's the thing. These folks have been attacked publicly, privately, in courts, alleged prosecuted, but they don't even lead with that. Because to them, the work is about the people, right? So Keith Ellison is part of the tip of the spear when it comes to the deployment of ICE, Customs and Border Patrol in our communities, rousting people, harassing people, killing people in the name of some warped agenda that has nothing to do with keeping this nation safe. Keith Ellison is part of the vanguard of state attorneys general who's fighting back against that tide and many other issues as well. Please welcome Keith Ellison.
So Damon, I gotta lower this thing a little bit when I come behind you. Anyway, love you, Damon. You're just a wonderful guy. And my colleagues, my goodness, can we hear it for these wonderful leaders? There are 24 of us, 24 AGs. I don't even call us dim AGs. I call us justice AGs. All of them lockstep, united in fighting for the rule of law, for democracy, for justice for everybody. Every one of them. And every one of them is amazing, and I stand in awe of them. I don't know what state we all come from, but let me tell you, if you got a dim AG, you got somebody who is a lion who's fighting back every single second. We, back in March 2024, we assembled in Tisch's office in New York, and we all read, Project 2025. We pulled it, all 900 pages, and we divided ourselves into committees, and we went out there. So when on January 20th, 2025, we were ready to throw down. And as you were already told, Trump comes out with his birthright citizenship. We come straight out the box, suing him, blocking him right away. And then it was just on from there. We filed, I think, 56 cases by now because we got some special attention. He tried to block $234 million in Medicaid funds from Minnesota just the other day. Let me just say this to y'all. I hope you, in this sacred space, allow me to say Assalamu alaikum to some of my friends. Let me say Ramadan Mubarak to y'all fast than I am. Let me say bienvenido y buenas tardes, todas y todas. Anybody listen to that? Any Spanish speakers in the house? That's right. Let me tell you, Damon, we had about 80 Minnesotans come to Alabama, led in many ways by Abdulaziz Muhammad right there. Want to thank Senator Omar Fattah. Stand up, young man, let the people see you. Also led by leaders in our Latino community, Ma Elena, who leads Fe y Justicia, which means faith and justice in Spanish, right here, St. Cloud. And then also Manta, y'all don't know Manta, a few years ago, she was the sharp edge of the spear when Trump started attacking our Cambodian community in Minnesota. Manta started something called the Minnesota 8, showed up or been organized, and so when they hit us, we were ready. Stand up, Manta, let everybody see you. Now, I just want to say, let me just tell you, everybody, this. So look, 61 years ago, this room was filled with people whose heritage was African descent, who had labored for 2.5 centuries in bondage in America, in this soil. That's pretty much who was here. And we had white allies here as well. Today, we got the multiracial struggle. Because of what? Because of what they did in Montgomery and in Selma so many years ago. Do not forget, friends, that when Bloody Sunday leads directly to the Voting Rights Act, which, right? The Bloody Sundays in March, Voting Rights Act is signed in August. What was signed in October? Does anybody know? The immigration bill. The immigration bill that said you don't have to be a white European to come to America. And that created the multiracial America that we know today. And that is what we're fighting to extend and protect right this minute. The anti-immigrant project and the anti-black project are the same project. We've got to know this. Let me say this to my African Americans who find their roots deep in this soil. They said we wasn't citizens for 2.5 centuries. They said we wasn't citizens for 2.5 centuries, and it took a civil war which cost the lives of 800,000 people to establish the idea, right? They were willing to let their sons and daughters die and lose everything in order to preserve human bondage. And then even after that, we needed a momentous civil rights movement to create multiracial democracy, which I'm telling you, you are standing where it happened. You are standing where the America, look, they're going to tell you all about, Washington and Jefferson and Madison. They didn't create the America you know. The America you know was made in 1965 right here. The America you know, that fight was in many ways not started, but truly accelerated just an hour up the road in Montgomery. So no, I'm telling you, if you are here because your parents said, we're gonna move to the United States, this is your struggle 100%. Don't you think for a second that it's not. It absolutely is, and we need you to embrace it hard because when they come after immigration, they're coming after the civil rights legislation that we fought for in the 1960s. So it is critically important, and I'm gonna take a seat. It is critically important that we all understand it's the same project. Let me tell you, there was a man named Jimmy Lee Jackson. He was murdered in Marion, Alabama. Killed in Marion, Alabama. And then Martin Luther King, he, with the leadership of John Lewis and Hosea Williams, started the march. And along the way, you had Viola Liuzzo murdered. And if y'all took the road from Montgomery to here, you passed by where they killed her. She's a white lady from Detroit. And they murdered Reverend James Reeb, not too far from here. Came down on the same project. Well, in Minnesota, friends, first they killed George Floyd. They murdered George Floyd, and we sued him and we prosecuted him and we put the people in prison who did it. Now they've killed Renee Good and Alex Preddy. Renee Good was a mother of 6. She had just dropped her child off. And Alex Preddy was a ICU nurse. He was exercising his right to bear arms. They took the gun off of his person and shot him 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times on the ground. You saw it. And we are going to hold them accountable for what they did. Let me tell you, there are people sitting perhaps in this chapel right now who remember Bloody Sunday. Lord knows in years that I've been here, several of them sat right in this sacred space. And I'm here to tell you that yesterday is now. The people who got bloodied on Bloody Sunday created the Voting Rights Act, the immigration bill, fair housing, right? Medicaid, TRIO, all of that. What are we going to do with this moment, friends? We have to do. We're standing on the shoulders of giants. We get to see further than the giants because we're on their shoulders above them. And we have got to ask ourselves right now, what are we going to do? Right now, we got an election in a few months. They're actively trying to steal it. Read the ProPublica article on February 19th. This bandit named General Mike Flynn assembled the worst, y'all know what I'm talking about? Assembled the worst election suppressors in America. They all got gold medals for anti-democracy. Pulled them together and said, how can we steal this one, guys? My question is, what's our election protection plan? Dem AG's got one. Nick Brown is leading our effort in that front. But we got to do this thing together. The Dem AGs, yeah, we're honored to do the work that we do, but we got to be in tight solidarity with the civil rights leaders like Damon Hewitt, like Urban League, NAACP, Lawyers Committee, all of them. Forgive me if I left anyone out. None of these lawyers, including me, can do one thing without the leadership of the people, and that is you. And that is you. So I'm going to have a seat right now, but I just want to say, this moment, our descendants are counting on us to have at least as much courage as the people who got bloodied on Bloody Sunday.
Right. The movement doesn't ask too much of us. It asks what's required. The late Reverend C.T. Vivian said, we're willing to be beaten for democracy. So what are we willing to do? Attorney General Ellison spoke about the America we know and how it came to be. I like to think of the America in that, well, he's talking about the Civil Rights Movement as a second founding of this nation. Sister Janae from LDFs calls it the birth certificate of democracy of this nation, right? And so there's another way to think about the America that we know, which is quickly becoming the America that we knew, because things are devolving and changing rapidly. You can think about America's evolution in terms of Reconstruction. See, there was a first Reconstruction after the Civil War that brought us the 13th, 14th, to 15th Amendments that ended chattel slavery except for certain felonies. That big loophole in the 13th Amendment. The 14th Amendment, the Equal Protection Clause, and citizenship, which is being flipped on its head. And the 15th Amendment, which doesn't give you the fundamental right to vote. There's no right to vote in the Constitution. Don't be shocked to learn that if you didn't know it. But our rights to vote shall not be abridged by race, color, prior condition of servitude as in slavery. That's the first Reconstruction. The second Reconstruction in this nation was at the height of the Civil Rights Movement. Before, during, and after Selma and Bloody Sunday. It brought us the Civil Rights Act of 1964, the Voter Rights Act of 1965, the Immigration Act, Fair Housing Act of 1968. So what those two reconstructions have in common is that they were both fundamental realignments of the legal, political, and social relationship between the people and the state, as in the government, and the legal, political, and social relationship between and among Americans. I don't just mean citizens, but people in this country. So we need another realignment. We need a third Reconstruction. So as we fight back and we fight forward, we're fighting forward to that third Reconstruction. And so I want to end up with kind of a rapid response, have our attorneys general talk to us about 10, 20 years from now, the work that you're doing out of, we're building upon the past, but the seeds we're planting right now, where's that going to lead to us 10, 20, 30, or maybe beyond our lifetimes? What does that third Reconstruction look like to you in your states and nationwide? And we can, and why don't we start with our Attorney General from New Jersey to give us a word about that. Thank you.
I know. All right. Well, so you're a veteran compared to me. I'm in this position as the New Jersey Attorney General just over a month. And if you had...
Already in Selma. Look at that.
And yeah, I mean, and if you had told me that I'd be batting cleanup here, just over a month ago, I would have told you were bananas. And if you had told me 20 minutes ago I'd be sitting on the stage, I would have told you were bananas. But I heard about this a few weeks ago, and I am just completely overwhelmed because it wasn't anything I could have imagined. I wanted to come because we have such an amazing partnership across attorneys general, but also with the Institute for Social Justice and Salvation and Social Justice in New Jersey. And we need to learn. I'm new to this role and I want to learn. I want to listen. And I think that's incumbent upon all of us, right, to do that. And if I think about what we're going to do, we never do it in isolation, right? We listen to communities, we listen to everyone, and then we act. And to answer that question, I think it's the act part, right? It's the act part that we want to see. Because we can do it now, but if we stand by, I went to the Legacy Museum this morning and just, there are no words. And on the wall, where you see all the dirt, in the jars, and then on the wall, what struck me in one of the lines was, and I'm gonna get it wrong, but it was basically the absence of government or no government intervention, right? At best, it's no government intervention. At worst, it's allowing government is pushing this and allowing this. And that's where I see us as attorneys general and us who are so fortunate to have these leadership positions as public servants to make sure that there is the accountability and the transparency to make sure that we are the ones who are acting. And if others are not going to do that, or if others are going to act contrary to what we think, that we stand up and we protect it. So thank you.
Anybody from New Jersey here? Make some noise. We love your new Attorney General. He wants to enact the SAVE Act. And the SAVE Act stands for Safeguarding Americans' Voting Eligibility. S, in my opinion, means stealing. Stealing the American voter eligibility. Or suppressing the American voter eligibility. Subduing the American voter eligibility. It certainly isn't safeguarding it. And so all of us collectively, and there is power when you work together, and we are recognizing that, we represent that, we embody that. We wrote a letter to this administration, basically urging both houses not to pass the SAVE Act for all of the reasons that I mentioned, because in our Constitution, it does not say Congress or the president has a role in elections. What does it say? States. What does it say? What does it say? It's all about the states and localities which have control over our elections, not Congress. 2, he issued one of his illegal, unconstitutional, unlawful, does not have the force of law, executive orders. And we challenged it because he wants to nationalize our elections. And we stood up and said, nope. And we won. We have a PI. And then lastly, in my beloved state of New York, we passed the John Lewis Act. Because as you know, there is a case, Callison, before the United States Supreme Court, which basically would get rid of Section 2, which would basically get rid of pre-clearance. And in New York, it's this black woman in her office that has responsibility for pre-clearance in the state of New York. And so it's important that states step up at a time when Congress is paralyzed. But justice, my friends, is not paralyzed. Not now, not ever. And so it's going to be up to states to step up in the absence of a DOJ, which unfortunately does not recognize their role or their responsibility in voting and in civil rights and in justice, and the list goes on and on. It's states that will now have to step up at a time when they are basically retreating from all that federal government, the responsibility of federal government. It is now up to states to step in and take over for consumer fraud and for voting rights and for antitrust, and for the list goes on and on. It is states that'll step up to address the issue of affordability and the issue of tenants and housing. It's states that will step up to protect the rights of all Americans. It is up to states to get injunctions and temporary restraining orders and preliminary injunctions. And that responsibility, my friends, falls on the shoulders of Democratic attorneys general. And we've been doing it during the last iteration of Donald Trump and this iteration of Donald Trump. We will step in the vanguard in the absence, in the shadow of the federal government, because what we believe in and what we recognize, that we've got a responsibility. We took an oath to the Constitution and not to one man. And we do not believe in a unitarian form of government. We believe in democracy, protecting it now and forever, and most importantly, the rule of law.
You heard it here first. We go now. Want to do one more shout out. Meredith Sumter from Fair Voters in the House. Meredith, thank you for being with us, and all the organizations who are here. So, Selma's all about legacy, and at the Lawyers Committee, part of our legacy is being birthed at a peak period of civil rights activism and thought leadership and sacrifice. 9 days after Medgar Evers was assassinated in the driveway of his own home, President John F. Kennedy convened nearly 250 lawyers, a racially integrated group of lawyers, to the White House. Now, there were lots of white lawyers who were leaders in the private bar, and they are notable. There were also black lawyers who were in the room. The young John Conyers before he was in Congress. Christy Wallace Slater, the younger Ernest Dutch Morial, before he was mayor of New Orleans, Mark Morial's father. And also for the Deltas in the House, Sadie Tanner Moselle Alexander, who's the first president of Delta Sigma Theta and the first black woman to graduate from the law school I attended, Penn Law School. And so they were all founders of the Lawyers Committee. Some of those people actually are credited with having ghostwritten parts of the Voting Rights Act, right? And so that's part of our legacy. That Voting Rights Act and specific provisions thereof, Section 2, are responsible for creating not just the concept and the notion of justice, but real meaningful opportunity in at least a couple of ways. One is dramatic increases in black voter registration, black voter participation. I'm not going to say turnout, because that sounds like it's just your choice. Sometimes it is. But participation, when you're free from intimidation and threat of violence. And also, black elected officials, our candidates of choice in those elections. That landmark legislation is responsible for bringing Alabama its first black congressional district. And that district occupied by none other than your own Congresswoman Terry Sewell. Please come to the stage. I'm going to come back to you. You got the fan in too.
Thank you.
That's a suit for you right there.
I'm going to be very quick. The Bible says, train up a child in the way that she shall go, and when she is grown, she will not depart. I not only welcome you to Alabama's 7th Congressional District and my hometown of Selma, Alabama, but I am a life member of this church, the historic Brown Chapel AME Church. And if I'm looking around in awe, it is because this church has been under renovation for 4 years. It's a soft opening. It's gonna be beautiful when it's all done. I'm just so happy to be standing right here, right now. My pew was right over there. And listen, I wanted to come by and tell our attorney generals and the Lawyers Committee and the New Jersey Institute for Social Justice, not only hello, but thank you. You know, we live in trying times and we need these lawyers. We need these justice defenders to step up. You know, the times have found us. They say that the times have found, and that's true. But I know that we're built for a moment like this. That's right. We're built for a moment like this because we stand on the shoulders of giants. Constance Bacon Martley, Thurgood Marshall, come on now. And they may not have gone to Harvard, Keith. But they were damn good lawyers. My pastor's not here. Is my bishop here? Listen, I just wanted to say welcome to Selma. You know, the world comes to Selma once a year. But what I want you to know is that this is a town of 17,000 people. We are a community of 17,000 people. And we know that we're custodians of America's history. And we take ownership of that. But we also want you to see us for who we are. We are proud Selmians, and I'm 3rd generation Selma. And I want you to know that I get to walk the halls of Congress as the first African-American woman from the state of Alabama to represent them in Congress because of the sacrifice of those on that bridge. And it's because of that that we all owe them a debt of gratitude that we can never, ever, ever repay. But here's one way. Vote like your life depends on it. Vote like your life depends on it, because it does. I carry the seminal piece of legislation in Congress that would restore the Voting Rights Act of 1965, the John Robert Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act. I am honored every day to hold on to that bill and to push it through Congress. Now, we've passed it twice when the Democrats were in the House. And let me just tell you, come November 3rd, when the Democrats take over, Keith, I'm gonna get a gavel. All right. And my gavel will be on the subcommittee on elections. On elections. That's right. I'm ready. Long time coming. But I couldn't do what I do without, and we can't do what we do without you all. You know, John Lewis said that we all have a role to play. And if we've learned anything, it's that progress is elusive. And every generation has to fight and fight again to hold on to the progress that we've made and to try to advance it. This is our moment. This is our time. I want you to vote. Volunteer. O, organize. T, turn out and elect folks who will take you seriously and do your bidding wherever they are, okay? Right. Thank you all for being here. And again, look at my church.
Thank you, sir. I love you, sister. I appreciate you.
Take my fan, too.
Where them fans at? She has hers. So, Bishop has spoken and we have to wrap. I want to ask if Attorney General Nick Brown or Keith Ellison have a quick final word.
I got a quick final.
Oh, go ahead, man.
Nick, you want to go? I do mean quick. Let me be quick. So look, friends, we got a little bit of time between now and November. And I'm telling you, we only got a little bit. They are already plotting to steal this next election. They're already plotting to steal this election. And so we really do need this not just to be a memorial, not just to remember great things that our ancestors have done, but things that we have to do right here, right now. And the last word I want to say to you, I just want to say, and my wife, Monica, says this to me a lot. How you doing, my dear? Give my wife a hand, y'all. Right. So, and she might say, when did I say that? But let me just tell you, remember when Donald Trump was being sworn in? Who was sitting behind him? Musk, right? Musk, come on, help me out. Who else? Bezos, who else? Zuckerberg, right? I'm telling you, in the words of a great justice named Brandeis, he said, you can have concentrated wealth or you can have democracy, but you cannot have both. Yes. This country has more concentrated wealth right now than it even during the Gilded Age of the 1890s to 1920. There's more rich people with fewer hands than ever, and they are perverting democracy. And you asked us if we could dream 20 years down the line. My dream is shared prosperity in America.
All right. Let's thank all of our speakers, and look, and one more hand for Terry Sue, because I don't always testify before Congress, but when I do, it's often before her committee. So thank you very much. I want to thank the staffs of the New Jersey Institute for Social Justice and the Lawyers Committee. Wave or stand wherever you are. They might be in the back. Thank you all. Amen. Yeah, don't leave it with. We couldn't do without you. I want to thank my brother in justice, who's been with me through thick and thin, through professional and personal, Ryan Paul Haygood. I want to thank Pastor Leodis Strong from this institution, from this church. And I want to thank the attorneys general who are fighting alongside us and alongside you and for and with us at the same time. Letitia James, Nick Brown, Keith Ellison, our attorney general from New Jersey. Jen Davenport. My apologies. Thank you so much. We love y'all. Thank you. Let's go pick. All right. With that red, that's beautiful.